Hello and welcome to Remote Learning for 917. Today is Thursday, which means we are almost to the weekend, just one more day after this. So today we will be doing a research case study on the Atlantic slave trade. So a couple of reminders before we get started that Friday, tomorrow, 9/18, is the due date for the Chapter 1 West and Central Africa vocab map. There were 12 vocab words that we need to put the definition, a reminder word, and then a picture for. So make sure that you do that, get it done, and submit it by 3:30 tomorrow. After that, we have our first test over Chapter 1, West and Central Africa, on Tuesday, which, let me check my calendar and see the exact date, will be the 22nd. So the 22nd will be our first test. We've done 2 quizzes. This test will be over the vocab from this section. It will be over all of the notes that we have done thus far. So I'm going to post a file where we have all of the notes and the PowerPoints. So if you want to go back through and look and make sure that you aren't missing anything, you can do that. We will not have to worry about the map or geography for this test though. So fear not, we are done with the map for now until we start working on another section. We also have our mass project coming up. So next Friday, the 25th, is the due date for our mass project. So we need both our physical mass done and then the written portion of the mass. So tomorrow we are going to have a work day. So if you feel like you are getting really behind on any assignments, tomorrow is a perfect day for you to play catch up or get ahead. So with all of that done, it is time to get started on today's assignment. Okay, so today, like I said, we are doing a research case study on the Atlantic slave trade. So if you go to Canvas, you can go into the module for West and Central Africa and find the slave trade research assignment. So if you open it up, you will be looking at a map. So this map has an image of the slave trade. So we can see a bunch of different things on here. We have our map key, and then we have a bunch of different information on it. So what we are going to do is we're going to read the directions, which says, what are 5 things you can learn from the Atlantic slave trade from this map? So looking at this map, we can see a bunch of different things. So we need to write down 5 things that we notice from this map. That can be anything from where slaves are coming from, where slaves are going to, the number of slaves, the time period for all of this, and the types of products and resources that slaves are being used to produce. So we can use this map to understand and learn a bunch of different things. Once we have done that and we have written our 5 things in complete sentences, we can move on to the next page. So the next page has a number of sources. So they're small clips of writings and sources and some images. So what we're going to do is read all of these and then answer the question that follows. So source 1, the question says, what does the author say about how enslaved Africans found themselves aboard a ship? Source number 2 has some more writing, and the question is, what are 3 things you can learn from the Atlantic slave trade from this primary source? So a primary source and a secondary source are the 2 types of sources that we use in history or social studies. So a primary source is something that comes directly from the event or the person. So if I'm writing about my day, or Benjamin Franklin was writing about his day and what he did, that would be a primary source. So an example would be something like a diary or a journal is a primary source. A secondary source would be someone writing about a primary source. So if I was talking about Benjamin Franklin's day and his journal, that would be an example of a secondary source. So primary sources are things that people wrote about what actually happened, and then secondary sources are people writing about a primary source. if you think about it, a primary source would come first, and then a secondary source comes after, is about the primary source. So moving on to source number 3, we have a image or a diagram of what a slave ship looked like or how it was laid out. And then we have some writing. And so the directions are summarize what the author is saying in this quote. We have a really long quote here, and so we need to write it down, summarize it, put it into our own words, and explain what he was saying. And then we need to identify 3 symbols that you wish to draw that depicts life aboard an enslaved ship. So not unsimilar to, or not dissimilar to what we did with our vocab map, we are going to draw out a symbol that represents whatever is what we have learned about life on in a slave ship. So like you had to find a picture, you need to draw out, which I understand isn't going to be the greatest with the internet and using your finger or a stylus to try and do this, but we're going to do our best and persevere, and I'm not going to care too much about how artistic you are as long as you have 3 symbols. If we move on now, we have our 4th source. So our 4th source, the directions say list 4 facts that show how enslaved Africans were fed aboard a slave ship. Then the last bit says these pieces of text come from Alexander Falconbridge and Martin Duberman. Falconbridge was a British surgeon who took part in 4 voyages on ships between 1780 and 1787 before becoming an abolitionist to end slavery. Martin Duberman was a 20th century historian and biographer famous for writing about social justice issues. Explain to the extent that Alexander Falconbridge or Martin Duberman are reliable sources on the enslavement and treatment of Africans. The last page has a couple of different images, and so each text box relates to the image to the right or the left of it. So if we read the directions, the first one says which source, 1, 2, 3, or 4, the ones we just went over, addresses the picture to the right. Directly copy the quote from the source into the space provided. So if we look at our image, we need to figure out which source it best relates to. So we might have to go back and reread some of the sources. And once we have determined what source we think it best goes with, we need to then find a quote. So we need to take exactly what they said and then type it out in quotations. So if we decided that it related best to part of source number 3, we would take part of source number 3 and we would write down word for word exactly what they said, and then we would put quotation marks on each end of it. And so we're going to do that for the 3 images that they have. So we're going to figure out which source best addresses the picture that they put to the right or the left of our text boxes. Once we have done that, we can go ahead and submit it on Canvas so that we can get a grade for it. So now that we went over how to do the assignment, you can go ahead and get to work. Make sure that you read everything, reread it twice if you're not sure about it, answer all the questions, complete the assignment, and turn it in so that we can get a 100% A+ on this grade. All right, so if you made it this far into the video, I'm assuming you have already done the assignment, completed it, and you're going to get 100%. If you haven't completed the assignment, you should probably get to work on it. But if you're done with everything and we still have time left in class, we need to make sure that we use our time wisely. So you can complete your vocab map if you haven't already done so. You can work on the mask assignment written component, which is due the 25th, or you can check for any missing work. If you do have some missing work that you happen to forgot to submit, or you just completely spaced and didn't do it, that's perfectly fine. Make sure that you message me so that we can get that work made up, because missing work is the number one reason why people are going to suffer and fail in this class. So if you do the work, you'll be fine. As long as you get everything done and turned in, there isn't going to be a problem. If you have done everything, you checked for missing work, you can do the Africa word search. So I posted it yesterday, but I didn't tell you guys about it. So the Africa word search is going to be extra credit. If you do it, which I happen to have it right here, it looks something like this. It's going to look better when you do it on Canvas because it's going to be all colorful, but it's just a list of African countries, some of which we haven't done yet and some of which have some kind of silly names, which as soon as you get to that name that starts with the D, it's the only D one, you're going to see what I mean. But if we do this assignment, we will see that we have a list of African names, and then our word search is in the shape of Africa. So we're going to find all of the words and circle them. Don't highlight them. It's going to be easier for me to see if you actually circle them. So we're going to do this, and if we finish it, we can get 5 extra points for our test. So if you're not sure how you're feeling for this test, or you're kind of nervous because it's our first one, and it's going to be a big impact on the grade before we get to the next test and further on down the road. This is going to be a big part of your grade for a little bit. But I know that if you have done everything, you're going to do fine. But if you want some insurance just to be sure that you get the best possible grade, then you can do this, get 5 extra points for the test. So let's say you happen to miss a couple of questions and your grade goes from what would have been 100 to say a 94 because you missed 3 questions. And so that brings you down 2 points each. If you do this, your grade will be a 99 because you'll get 5 extra credit points. So it's just a way to make sure that you get the best possible grade you can. So if you have any questions, feel free to message me on Canvas. Let me know how I can help you. And I think that's it. Have a nice day. I will see you guys tomorrow.